Who are the 5 most untouchable Arizona Cardinals as we're staring at free agency 2023? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Please go like, subscribe, turn the notifications on over at the old YouTube. Just search Locked On Cardinals. Daily content, baby. I'm going to be here all the way free agency, the draft, off season. Mini camps. Voluntary. I mean, it's going to be the 2023 NFL season is going to be here before you know it. The beauty of the NFL is that there is no offseason. The beauty of the NFL is that every stage, every season of a calendar year has a different NFL motif, hovering over it, like this great, majestic cloud of awesomeness. And today, I promised this young gentleman that I would talk about this in January, and I'm just getting around to it now. But Griffin Sheffield gets this entire podcast at Lil Chef 11. Give him a follow on Twitter. The 5 most untouchable Arizona Cardinals, and this was a mixture of me forgetting, as there were so many other things to talk about, right, with Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim getting fired and the coaching and GM search, but also the timely manner that March 13th is when teams can negotiate with free agents, begin negotiations. Technically, the beginning of free agency is 4 p.m. Eastern, March 25th. We're 8 days away. So the 5 most untouchable Arizona Cardinals for 2023 specifically is an interesting topic now. We're going to remove Kyler Murray, okay? So I'm going to do 5 non-quarterback players. One of them is going to be a free agent that I think the Arizona Cardinals should 100% sign. One is a running back, believe it or not. One is a wide receiver, even though I'm not necessarily sure that that's the best course of action for the Cardinals. And then one is obvious. I'll leave that till the end because he's the most important non-quarterback the Arizona Cardinals have. Spoiler alert, his first and last name start with the same letter. But I wanted to take the first segment to talk about the 2 free agents that the Cardinals are either going to re-sign or let walk. And that's Byron Murphy and Zach Allen. And Byron Murphy, I've seen over Twitter a lot, fans would choose Byron Murphy over Zach Allen if you had to pick one. They're both going to want a lot of money. The cornerback position is a higher price point for future contracts than what Zach Allen would get. And Zach Allen, although had an injury-riddled first couple seasons as an Arizona Cardinal, really came into his own last year. Byron Murphy, 2021, first half Pro Bowler. 2022, first half Pro Bowler. Injury. Then the Arizona Cardinals, went down to the cellar last year. And it was just kind of bad teams. The players don't come back quickly, especially if the season's, spiraling out of control. So maybe Byron Murphy would have been healthy enough to play if the Cardinals were in playoff contention last year, but, especially in a contract year for him, maybe, they sat him out and he didn't play all the way through like he would have if the Cardinals were in contention. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's just kind of how things go. So we didn't really get to see a full season of Byron Murphy in 2021 or 2022, but the season worth of football he did play, you smack those two together, that's all pro level stuff. So do you keep him? Pay him a lot of money? That's going to be Christian Kirkian money. That's going to be a lot of cheese you're going to have to give to somebody that you don't know, first of all, he can stay healthy. 2, if he's a bona fide CB1. What we've seen is that he has that in him. And also, to his defense, they haven't had a whole lot of talent in the cornerback room that has really allowed him to have any sort of wiggle room. It's been him or it hasn't been. It's been Marco Wilson. It's been, a cavalcade of Antonio Hamilton and other gentlemen who aren't necessarily the cream of the crop when it comes to cornerbacks in the NFL. So you have that option. And then you have Zach Allen. Zach Allen, the naysayers will say, well, it was J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's the reason on the field why Zach Allen produced last year. Hooey fish. I'm really going to start using that a lot. So for better or worse, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Hooey fish on that. J.J. Watt did immeasurable things for Zach Allen and his skill set and his demeanor and his mentality approaching the game. You can see it. He wasn't lacking necessarily before J.J. Watt signed with the Cardinals. But I've mentioned this a lot, especially last season. The timing of which J.J. Watt joined the Arizona Cardinals, colliding with the years that Zach Allen had played in the league beforehand. Zach Allen was more sponge-like because he understood the game and the speed at that time. It's not like J.J. Watt was coming in and mentoring a rookie. He was mentoring, a third-year guy. So Zach Allen, even though he had injury concerns, when he played at an excellent level for the Cardinals. It was sparingly, but last year he really popped. And this is, again, not an original story. Contract years, a lot of times players will play above what we've seen up until that point because they know that that year specifically will be weighted more heavily than the other years when they played in the league. Not to say they don't play hard, not to say anything like that, but contract year, it's a thing. Who would have a greater impact on this roster moving forward? That's the question. Who is the untouchable one? And in my opinion, collecting all data where the Cardinals are in the draft and what the Cardinals have as it's referring to needs, I think Zach Allen's the choice. And I know that Byron Murphy on paper, if you could guarantee he played 85% of games for the next 4 seasons, that's the choice. You bite the bullet, you pay the kid, and he's going to deserve it. He's going to get paid a whole lot of cheese from somebody. But the problem is that this is one of the things that we're going to have to deal with watching the Cardinals having to let people walk to right the ship from what we've experienced over the last couple seasons. The inability to build out a roster with sustainability, you're going to have to watch maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 of your favorite players walk. And I think Byron Murphy is going to be that guy this offseason. It could be Zach Allen also. And that is kind of problematic for me for a couple reasons. But I will say Zach Allen, the first untouchable Arizona Cardinal, in my opinion, that should not hit free agency. The franchise tag is come and gone. They were going to franchise tag him anyways. But I believe that Zach Allen on a 4-year, $65 million deal with $35 million guaranteed, something like that, would 100% be the right move for the Cardinals. 100%. The first untouchable Arizona Cardinal going into the 2023 season as free agency looms is Zach Allen. Who's next? There's so many different options. I'm going to talk about 2 guys who, if cut post June 1st, would have upwards of $15 million in cap space saved by the Cardinals. And I think it would be a bad move to let either one of them go. How's that for a tease, baby? Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, baby, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Please go to the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, leave a comment. Let's chat, yo. I love this. I love talking with you. I love debating, agreeing, whatever. That's the fun stuff for me. DM me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Let's have a conversation. Like, I want to open this up. And, you know, it's going on a full season where I've been doing this podcast solo. And I want as much interaction as possible from you. Like, I'm enjoying this more than I ever have. Back to my radio days. And I wouldn't change anything for the world. So thank you so much for being along this ride with me. The number one most untouchable Arizona Cardinal going into 2023 should be Zach Allen. It should be Zach Allen. Because I've talked about this a lot over the last couple seasons especially. The Arizona Cardinals don't have many Arizona Cardinals on their roster. The Arizona Cardinals are the city of Phoenix personified with a football team. Transplant. It's hard to build an ecosystem. It's hard to build a culture when you're constantly taking players from different teams and trying to makeshift the roster. How many Arizona Cardinals are on the Arizona Cardinals roster right now? Let's count. Shall we? Just off the top of my head. Kyler Murray, nailed it. DJ Humphries, Byron Murphy, Marco Wilson, Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, Zach Allen. I mean, Rondale Moore, 10. And sure, there are other guys, but 10, 12, Marcus Golden, Lecky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence, but like guys that of impact, Pro Bowl level guys. How many Arizona Cardinals are on this roster? And this isn't splitting hairs. This isn't making content for content's sake. Think about it. How many guys didn't play on another team before they came and played for the Cardinals? And yes, across the NFL. Well, obviously there's free agents, there's trades. Not as the main vessel to acquire talent. That's what it's been. It's been outsourcing, trades, free agency, not through the draft. And that's something that needs to change immediately. And that's why I've talked so much about the Cardinals needing to trade down. They need to eat their vegetables. But there are 5 guys that the Cardinals absolutely must retain going into 2023, Zach Allen being one of them. The other 2, this is where it gets a little sticky, okay? But the 2 names are Zach Ertz and James Conner. And go with me here, okay? So according to Over the Cap, James Conner, if cut post June 1st, would save the Cardinals $2.6 million, okay, in dead cap, okay? It would save them $2.6 million. Now, Zach Ertz, it would save them more. It would save them, so $2.6 million for it would save them that. Okay, now it would save the Cardinals $3 million if they cut Zach Ertz post June 1. Okay? Oh no, it would save them 6. Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. So that would save them $8 million in cap space if they cut both of them post June 1st. Okay. And that's like, well, you could sign somebody else. You could sign somebody else. You could sign an offensive lineman. You could sign. Absolutely. Understood. Zach Ertz coming off injury. James Conner, a running back. Both of the players have an out. I think it's a team option for both. I need to double check on that after the 2023 season. Okay. But there is an out in both of their contracts after the 2023 season. So with the Cardinals being in flux, with the Cardinals transitioning, I don't think it's necessary to move on from either of those guys. The Cardinals aren't going to win very many games this year if Kyler Murray's out for a handful of games, half the year, whatever. So I think keeping these guys who really have become Arizona Cardinals, I guess, like there are very few players like James Conner and Zach Ertz immediately join the ecosystem of this team. Immediately. The culture, everything. They were perfect fits because they're, good people. You could say the same about DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins was a 1A player when he was traded here, so it's kind of graded on a different curve. It's more production for DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's been a great fit for this team. Obviously, he'd be a great fit for any team, whatever team he gets traded to, which I think is a terrible decision. But I'm not putting him in the 5 most untouchable because you see the writing on the wall with that. So it would be kind of a fool's errand for me to even discuss DeAndre Hopkins as being untouchable, even though I think he should be. But with Zach Ertz coming off injury, I understand. Keeping him on the roster, maybe he stays past this season. Like, he could play another 3 seasons if he comes back from his injury, without any sort of hiccups. And you know what? His main goal would be to groom Trey McBride. That is, you happily pay, especially with a year where the Cardinals aren't going to contend most likely for a Super Bowl. The time that Zach Ertz can spend with Trey McBride, just like J.J. Watt spent with Zach Allen, would be absolutely immeasurable for the future and invaluable for the future. Because what we saw from Trey McBride, mostly with Trace McSorley, was, kid's got giddy up. So he's going to be fine. Trey McBride's going to be fine. Should they have drafted him? Probably not. But them having him now, hopefully they will have their tight end for the future. Tight end, wide receiver. The dude's going to be a beast. He's tall. He catches everything. He runs good routes. He's going to be fine. But having Zach Ertz here to tutor him, to mentor him, I think will be invaluable for the future and well worth biting the bullet on the contract and the cap space this season for the future for Trey McBride. And Zach Ertz is going to come back and he's going to play and he's going to put up good reps. I feel like that's a no-brainer. They live here, just keep him. Okay, I feel like that's easy to keep Zach Ertz. Now, James Conner, that's another interesting story because James Conner, he's a running back, okay? And he's making some money this year, okay? But he's been the most productive offensive player for the Arizona Cardinals the last 2 seasons. So I don't know, I'm in the camp that they paid him, okay? He's got 1 more year and a dummy year, or he's got 1 more year after the 2023 season. But the dead cap hit goes way down, so that may be a reason to cut him, but the cap hit's going to only be $7 million next year unless they're going to restructure. James Conner needs to be an Arizona Cardinal. You need to keep James Conner as long as you can. His production hasn't dropped off at all. When he plays, he's a top 15 running back in the league. So especially when the Cardinals are going to probably draft a running back in the middle rounds, maybe 4th or 5th round, I would assume there is a deep running back class this year. Deep. And at this point that you can draft a running back in the 4th rounds or later and have a starting running back. Isaiah Pacheco, case in point, Elijah Mitchell was the one. It's like, I think he was a Raging Cajun. I think he went to Louisiana Lafayette, if I'm not mistaken. You can find running backs, but you also need the metronome of the offense. And the metronome of the offense has been James Conner. So you're not going to trade him. Teams don't do that anymore, especially with a guy his age, even though he's sneaky young. He's 28, okay? So he could be an Arizona Cardinal for the next 3 seasons, for the next 4 seasons, depending on contracts. You need a guy like him who can get in the end zone. James Conner can get in the end zone. So while it's not going to be necessarily cap-friendly for the Cardinals in 2023, they have so many other issues that they're not going to be building to win this year. So let them stay, keep them, have them become honorary Arizona Cardinals in the sense that they were drafted by the team, something like that, where they become part of the foundation of this team and move forward. I think that that's an absolute no-brainer. Now, there are 2 more untouchable Arizona Cardinals. One I agree with, one I'm skeptical about. As we roll on here on the 5 most untouchable Arizona Cardinals going into free agency in 2023, podcast rolls on. Final segment, Locked On Cardinals. Zach Allen, untouchable. Zach Ertz, untouchable. James Conner, untouchable. 2 more. First, go to YouTube, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit the subscribe button, hit a like on this video. Tell me I'm right about the 5, because that's what we do. Everybody agrees all the time. And let's ride off into the sunset together. If this is your first time listening to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. Hopefully tomorrow will be your second. If this is your 700th time listening to this podcast, thank you as well. Zach Allen, Zach Ertz, James Conner, untouchable Arizona Cardinals going into 2023. The one that I agree with that's obvious is Budda Baker, okay? It's Budda Baker. He's the face of the organization. Like, he's the one. He's the guy. We can talk about this maybe as we get towards next offseason. They need to back up the Brinks truck again for Budda Baker. And I know that he had an injury last year, okay? I know that his production numbers-wise dropped off last year. It wasn't a good year for anybody. But let me tell you, he needs to retire an Arizona Cardinal. This isn't like, oh, you know what? He grew up a Seahawks fan, so, let's go let him play. And you root for Budda Baker to go elsewhere. That mess needs to stop. If there's one thing that I disagree with Arizona Cardinals and Arizona sports fans in general is being okay with rooting for your favorite player who goes to a different team. It's like, you know what? Let's go let him win somewhere else. Stop it. Stop it. It's a defeatist attitude. Like Paul Goldschmidt. It's just, the Diamondbacks are, when it comes to that, that's a joke to me. It's a joke. Calais Campbell going to Jacksonville. DeAndre Hopkins, wherever he ends up, even though he's only been a Cardinal for a couple years. Tyrann Mathieu was the obvious one, but these are Steve Keimy times. That needs to stop. Take care of your own. And with Byron Murphy and Zach Allen, it's sticky because this is, again, kind of the road less traveled for the Arizona Cardinals of the last decade is the rational one. So this is when rationality has to kick in and when there's going to be collateral damage. But Budda Baker needs to be an Arizona Cardinal for the next 8 years. Every snap that he plays in the NFL needs to be with an Arizona Cardinals uniform on. It has to be. He's the guy. He's the heartbeat. He's the only pillar on defense that you can set and forget at this point. You understand how important that is? Sure, you've got your backup. I mean, you've got Jalen Thompson. Zaven Collins is coming to his own, things like that. But Budda Baker's the guy. And then the last one, okay, so before I do that, there's honorable mentions, obviously. Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, guys like that where it's like, got to see what happens. But if you get offered a second-round pick for Zaven Collins, are you 100% saying no? If you get offered a third-round pick for Isaiah Simmons, are you 100% saying no? I'm 100% saying no? I don't think so. Especially with the new regime coming in, they want their guys. Now, that's not to say that's the right move. And that's also not to say that they're going right into free agency. They're already under contract. So it's not really feasible like that. But that's why I kind of left them out. These are people that the Cardinals need to retain and not let walk or not cut for cap reasons. And then, the fifth one. So untouchable that I 100% agree with. Zach Allen, Zach Ertz, James Conner, Budda Baker. And Budda Baker's obvious, okay? Hollywood Brown is really interesting. Kyler Murray's best friend. Got it. First 6 weeks, can't forget about it. Wide receiver 1 the first 6 weeks without DeAndre Hopkins. Absolutely. My biggest fear last year, for those that haven't listened to this podcast a lot, my biggest fear was going into last season was Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins not playing meaningful snaps together. Poof, it happened. Now DeAndre Hopkins is going to be on the move. If the Cardinals would have seen that, I feel like longer conversations would be had about keeping both of them. But what's around the corner is Hollywood Brown wanting a massive deal. So there's 2 different ways this can go. One, it can go the route that I think it'll go, that I've been projecting it'll go, because it's gone this way for every other big-time wide receiver Hollywood Brown's agent has represented contractually wise. A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf. All three of them share an agent with Hollywood Brown. All three of them got a contract extension before their rookie scale contract was up. Now, maybe because last year was such a dumpster fire, maybe that's good for the Cardinals that Hollywood Brown doesn't have that weight, doesn't have that pedestal to stand on and say, listen, pay me. I don't want to play on my fifth-year option. If he does play on his fifth-year option, everybody wins, because then you can kind of move that to the next season. And it's like, well, they just traded a first-round pick for him, so why would you get rid of him now? Again, the road less traveled was the rational road. So the Cardinals have to backtrack. They have to look at their roster and be like, it doesn't matter how these players got here. It doesn't matter when they were drafted. It doesn't matter how much they got paid up until this point. You're looking at that roster with a fresh lens of nothing before this moment matters. And if they can get a late first-round pick for Hollywood Brown, do you 100% say no to that? Probably, because it's Kyler Murray's guy. And Hollywood Brown balled out in the first 6 weeks. But if you could get a first-round pick, and that first-round pick turns into, I don't know, Jackson Smith and Jigba or Jordan Addison, would you 100% say no? And the answer is probably yes. But while he is untouchable, that's the one that makes me a little more, are we going to kind of look outside the box here? See what the Cardinals can do? I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's so much more fun than just being like, nope, this is how it has to be because this is how it is in the NFL, and this is, stop it. Think outside the box. It's fun. Water's warm. Chill. Enjoy it. The 5 most untouchable Arizona Cardinals going into free agency. That's less than a week away, just over a week away. Zach Allen, Zach Ertz, James Conner, Budda Baker, Hollywood Brown. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.